chemistry lab before it was restored. And we had input, and we had a discussion here in the museum, whether or not to restore it. Because some people argued that we should be able to, it's the old debate, the ruin versus the intervention, you know, in the restoration there's always this dilemma, how much should you interfere in a space that has its own stratigraphy and its own biography, and the degradation that you received, it was part of its history. And what we did was a completely different thing, which was to delete 120 years of the history of this lab, because we put it back to 1890. So we have this debate.
That's because it's in a museum, it was in the university instead of...
No, this is the university. No. Actually, I was in favor of leaving the ruins. But Professor Bragança Gil, who was the museum manager, he gave two arguments. 1288, the Studio Generale was established in Lisbon. Anyway, long story, it doesn't matter. In the 19th century, after the recognition that Portugal was a very late in terms of development and the recognition of the importance of science and technology. We didn't have roads, we were delayed with the train and all that. So there was a recognition that we needed to train engineers, particularly engineers. And the Polytechnic School was created a bit like the French, the Paris Polytechnic, to give sort of a background, transversal background in all the sciences to both civilian and military engineers. So this was a mixed military-civilian engineering school. It was created in 1837, and there was already a chemistry lab here in the 18th century, but we don't have any remains of it. And it was exactly in this place. Probably that furnace there, some historians say that it was probably from the 18th century, but it's the only remain that we have. So it was created in the building, the idea started in the 1840s, and then it was built as it is today in 1890. So it's the model, 19th century chemistry model, which is very different from the 18th century. Because if you think of Lavoisier, for example, engravings, you see the fire thing, and then you have a table with all the instruments. That's the model of the one you'll see tomorrow in Coimbra. In 19th century, you have these units. It's specialization, so you have autonomous units for students to do different types of preparation at the same time. So it's a different idea and organization of space. Also different compartmentalizations of the disciplines. This was actually for organic chemistry, this big lab. It was used until the last course here was November 1998, which is kind of hard to believe. But already when there was a fire in 1978 in the Faculty of Sciences, so the Polytechnic School was extinguished, and then we had the University of Lisbon, and the Faculty of Sciences inherited all the professors, the students, and the buildings of the Polytechnic School. And there was a big fire in 1978. Nobody knows exactly how the fire started, but it was the post-revolution in Lisbon. We had the revolution, the end of the Salazar regime in 1974. So there was a period that was, there was a lot of political agitation, and the Faculty of Sciences was a focus of strong, it was already the time of Salazar resistance to the regime, and it continued being a sort of very left, very radical, you had pro-Albanians, pro-Marxists, Trotskyists, all sorts of things, exactly, all sorts of things in those days, some of them still exist today. But anyway, that type of, and there were bombs exploding in Portugal, counter-revolutionary and revolutionary bombs. So it was a period, the inquiry was never concluded, but they mentioned in the police thing that it could have been a counter-revolutionary bomb, it could have been just a cigarette butt. Anyway, what happens is that the whole building was destroyed except this part, because the firemen defended this by the millimeter. It was full of chemicals. So there was, for example, 25 kilos of potassium cyanide. There was, stuff that they have in chemistry departments. It's normal. So they defended the thing, and that's why this is the only, part of the building that is according to the original plan of the Lisbon Polytechnic School. So that's the first thing why we have it. It's also interesting that Portugal didn't have a lot of investment in new science, and so you had Marquês de Pombal, which invested in 19th century science. You had in 18th century science, then you had in the 19th century, and then in 20th century you didn't have any investment whatsoever. So that's why these things survived, because they were used. Usually in other places they would have a living time span of say 10 years. Because there was a moment in Europe where all chemistry labs were like this. But they were adapted, they were changed and so on. Because when I came here to study physics in 1986, I couldn't believe that I was going to, I didn't have anything to do with museums at the time.
I'd like to question what you said, because this is an exceptional setup here.
No. But
even by the standards of its time. I mean, that extraordinary demonstration of I've never seen